come into tomorrow. For Thursday, though, it's starting to turn more unsettled. Cloud and outbreaks of rain sinking its way southwards across Northern Ireland, Scotland, later into northern parts of England and Wales. Across the very far south and southeast, that's where we'll see the best of the brightness. And once again, feeling warm in the sunshine, but unsettled on Friday and Saturday with showers, longer spells of rain, and feeling a little bit cooler too. Bye-bye.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News traffic and travel report.
The latest GB News travel.
And a very good evening to you. I'm Johnny Ratner. Well, there are long queues if you're heading south down the M6 through Cumbria tonight from junction 44 to 43 towards Carlisle. That's due to an ongoing investigation blocking off the inside lane. Better news in Oxfordshire. The M40 fully back open between the Oxford services and Bicester had been shut for quite some time following a serious accident late last night. Still long queues and on surrounding routes on the A34 and on the A40 as you divert. And just north of Bristol city centre at Westbury Park, Westbury Road, that's shut northbound due to an obstruction off the White Tree roundabout. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News traffic and travel report.
There's just 2 weeks left to see how you could be a spring winner, as we have an incredible £17,777 in tax-free cash to be won. And if that wasn't enough, we'll also give you the latest Mulberry handbag and not one, but 2 sought-after designer watches. Make sure you don't miss out, as lines close on the 4th of April. For another chance to win the lot, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB12 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 4th of April. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
The royal family is an enduring symbol of tradition, unity and pride for Britain. At GB News, we celebrate what makes this country great. In our new royal newsletter series, you can join me, Cameron Walker, for Inside the Palace, an exclusive look every week that takes you beyond the gates and brings you the very latest from those at the heart of the monarchy. Never miss a royal moment again. Sign up now. Go to gbnews.com/royal newsletter and get the latest straight to your inbox.
Very, very good evening to you. It's Tuesday, the 23rd of March. Welcome to GBN Tonight with me, Martin Daubney. Tonight, we're staring down the barrel of a horrifying milestone. Nearly 30,000 illegal immigrants, just 3 shy of that number, in fact, have poured into Britain on Labour's watch. Now, that is a jaw-dropping 40% surge in just 12 months alone. Keir Starmer promised he'd smash the gangs. Instead, he's managed to smash the records for the number of illegal migrants flooding to Britain's shores. So, Sir Keir Starmer, what precisely happened? The only thing getting smashed right now is our borders. And the money spent on one diversity job salary at the Ministry of Defence, the woke MOD, is enough to pay for the salaries of 3 soldiers. What would you rather have? 3 squaddies or 1 pen pusher? Plus, now Europe knows what Donald Trump's team really thinks of it behind its back. Pathetic. is the word they use. Explosive leaked text revealed that Donald Trump's top team unleashed a furious tirade against Europe, including the United Kingdom, branding the European continent freeloaders and admitting they loathe having to foot the bill. What does this mean for transatlantic relations? Welcome to the show. So let's get straight to the big story of the day. We very, very nearly reached, only 3 shy today, a grim milestone as almost 30,000 illegal immigrants have arrived in Britain under the Labour Party. Now that represents an incredible 40% year-on-year increase. Well, so much for smashing the gangs. Plus, Channel migrant crossings this year have passed 5,500 in record time, despite Labour's attempts to crack down on people smugglers. Well, joining me now to discuss this is the person who knows a thing or two about this topic. It's the former Home Secretary, Suella Braverman. Suella, thank you for joining us on the show.
Good evening,
today.
Martin.
Before the election, we were warned of a Starmada, a number of boats pouring in, and of course number 10 said no. We will smash the gangs. We will succeed where your government failed in stopping the boats. But the facts are the facts and the numbers don't lie. It's a grim picture. We're looking at a new record, 30,000 under Labour.
You're right. It gives me no pleasure whatsoever to say that the government's plan to smash the gangs, as you coined it the Starmada, which I really like. I might pinch that, Martin, if you don't mind. Is not working. It's woefully failing. They're reaching record numbers. The numbers of illegal migrants entering the country since July is up by 40%. And, you know, promises have been made. People have put their faith in this government, and it's just not working. And it's a disgrace because the real-world impact of this is huge. The numbers of illegal migrants or asylum seekers in our hotels has risen exponentially. It's gone up. It's now about 38,000 asylum seekers housed in hotels all over the country, in my constituency, very soon, which is something that people are very unhappy about. And that is an increase of about 8,000 since July. So on any metric, this government is failing. It's letting down the British people, and it's understandable if people are angry about it.
Now, the Labour Party said that they would end asylum hotels. The opposite has happened. In fact, the 30,000 illegal immigrants who've poured in, by the government's own money, it's £124 a night. Now, by my maths, that's £4.26 million every single day. The budget is already £5.5 million every single day. The cost of asylum now over £6 billion every year. It's fair to point out that this was a problem that Rishi Sunak couldn't solve. It's fair to point out it's a problem that your government, when you were Home Secretary, couldn't solve. What can be done about this in the future? Because the public are simply starting to believe that no political party has the appetite to stop the boats or smash the gangs.
I can understand why they feel that way. And as Home Secretary, I inherited this problem. And you're right, my party, my government didn't succeed on stopping the boats. I should say in the year that I was Home Secretary, we managed to get the numbers down by about 20-30%. We also started the hard work of reducing the number of hotels that were being used by asylum seekers. And we did that by painstaking operational work, looking at where these thousands of asylum seekers were housed, trying to provide more bespoke asylum accommodation and, you know, getting them through the system more quickly. Obviously, we didn't succeed in solving the problem entirely, but we did begin to turn the tide. And I think that, you know, obviously people feel very angry with the Conservative government. That's why they booted us out of office. And immigration, and in particular illegal migration, was one of the big failings. But you know, people had expectations and they put their faith in the Labour government. And, you know, it's all right to keep looking back now at what the Conservatives did, but it's Labour's responsibility now. They've got a mandate. They've got the levers of power. They run the Home Office. They run the government and the operational side of things. They could change the laws if they really wanted to. And you asked what needs to happen. There needs to be a robust approach to border control. So first of all, we need to come out of the European Convention of Human Rights. I sound like a broken record, but I'll keep saying it until it happens, because that's how we stop these people making claims and gaming the system. We then need to absolutely make our border control much more robust. So we need to actually detain immediately upon arrival and remove illegal migrants very quickly, i.e. to a safe country like Rwanda.
Now, all of this sounds great, but you didn't do it. You didn't achieve it in power. That's the stark reality. And today, the Labour Party announced that they were scrapping a contract brought in by your government, and that is the Stay Belvedere Hotels Group, responsible for 51 hotels, about a quarter of asylum accommodation. That's been scrapped. A lot of people contacting us here at GB News fear that, like Neighbourhood Watch, it won't solve the issue, it will move the issue. And they're concerned it will move the issue into housing, into communities, people on your street. And in particular, they're concerned about the 1.5 million new homes that are being earmarked to be built. They'll be filled with asylum seekers. The government admitted as much yesterday. Nobody voted for new builds for new asylum seekers.
You're absolutely right. And I think it is disgraceful if Angela Rayner's house building plan, her plan to build 1.5 million new homes in the next Parliament, means that many of those homes go to asylum seekers. That cannot be right. That's taxpayers' money, that's land that should be going towards people who are in need of housing. I've got over 1,000 people locally in my borough who are in need of housing. British people, sometimes people who have, served for our armed forces, people who are deserving of a place, and they are being shunted to the bottom of the queue because illegal migrants will often be put at the top of the queue.
In that case, so many people contact GB News and say, we have our own homeless, and as you say, particularly veterans. And I know in your constituency, there's like a country pile that's been acquired and it's been earmarked for asylum seekers. An astonishing life of luxury, a lap of luxury. Why can't there be a simple policy? We've heard before, British jobs for British people. Why not British homes for British people? Why can't we just put some legislation in saying there should be a pecking order and Brits could and should come first? Why didn't the Conservative Party do that in power? And do you think that's a good idea moving forward?
Well, I'll tell you why it's not been done. Again, it's because of human rights. Because asylum seekers come here, or illegal migrants come to the country, and the minute they're in the United Kingdom, they are able to claim free housing. And there's a duty which is imposed, a legal duty.
With a priority.
With a priority.
They're at the front of the queue.
The Home Office will be breaking the law if it doesn't provide accommodation for an asylum seeker or an illegal migrant.
So why can't we change that law?
It needs to be changed. It needs to be changed because, frankly, the human rights of illegal migrants have become more important than the human rights of British people. That's not the right balance, and that's why we need to come out of this distorted, wrong-headed European Convention of Human Rights.
Is it the European Court of Human Rights, or is that a convenient smoke and mirrors? For example, Germany closed its borders to anybody. Austria did the same. Though the land borders have been closed. And Germany say they're going to deport Afghanis to the Taliban. They're in the ECHR. They're in the European Union. Is it really about that, or is it just actually a lack of political stones?
It is a combination of that. So there is a lack of political will currently to do the necessary job of stopping illegal migration. But leaving the ECHR is the first step. It is not the last step to fixing our border crisis. We need to overhaul our legal regime because we have a highly litigious environment which is fuelled by charities and NGOs, non-governmental organisations, which fund and support claims, often vexatious and ludicrous claims, put in by illegal migrants. Now, that environment doesn't exist in other European countries. The combination of an activist legal environment, I say this as a recovering barrister and lawyer myself, I worked in that field for a few years, the combination of the highly legalised environment, the Human Rights Act, which, again, other countries don't have, which is a domestic piece of law that Tony Blair enacted, which emphasises and emboldens the human rights laws, plus the European Convention on Human Rights, is is an asylum seekers or illegal migrants paradise, and that's where we're going wrong.
We often hear the law is an ass. Is it fair to say that the legal system has been captured politically? Is there an argument for two-tiered justice, where barristers, KCs even, actually are taking the side of illegal immigrants, taking the side of asylum seekers?
I think there is a strong element or strain within the legal profession and the judiciary, whereby there is a, it's been used before, the lefty lawyer. Strain is very strong within the legal profession. And
so
you get a lot
that?
of activist lawyers who are, they've come very close to campaigners, and they use laws and they use the courts and they use cases for campaigning purposes. And they have some of these cases which have come up recently have come from English judges. These are not European judges, but British immigration judges have found that we can't deport foreign criminals because, their son wouldn't enjoy the chicken nuggets abroad or something absurd like that.
Nigerians joining a prescribed terrorist organisation to avoid deportation.
Those are British judges. Those are not European judges, so that's their culture.
We know the framework of the problem. Is there any possibility of the Conservative Party uniting around a solution? And I say that because the Conservative Party couldn't unite around Brexit. It was two parties on that. Is there really the appetite in Tories, who you may call them wets, in the Shires? Is there really the appetite for those kind of Conservatives to unite around the flag of leaving the ECHR, of going full Trump, of deporting, of being hardline, or is this simply a fantasy that we'll never get in Britain?
Listen, I think the case is becoming, the case is compelling now for leaving the ECHR. Reform of the ECHR is not viable. There are, many other countries with whom reform has been tried before and it's failed. And ultimately, we need to extricate ourselves from the jurisdiction of a foreign court, which is politicised and interventionist. And we can't really fudge that. You're either in or you're out. You're either bound by the ECHR or you're not bound. And I think that leaving the ECHR, combined with those other changes relating to judicial review and operational border control, more powers for detention and deportation, could really work as a solution on this border crisis. But, half measures won't do. We've seen those fail under the Conservatives, and they're failing again under Labour.
Suella Braverman, a delight to have your company tonight, and we need now to cross to the White House. Donald Trump is speaking, addressing
it wasn't
security
classified,
breach.
so they probably viewed it as being something that wasn't that important. And it obviously, with the attack being, I don't know if it's been read out to you yet, but that attack was a tremendous success for the U.S., a tremendous success.
Who said the information
Go ahead,
was
please.
not classified? Do you think that Mike Waltz made a mistake, and does he need to apologize?
No, I don't think he should apologize. I think he's doing his best. It's equipment and technology that's not perfect, and probably he won't be using it again, at least not in the very near future. What do you think?
Sir, I agree with you. Let's get everybody in the room whenever possible.
A lot of times you find out defects by exactly things like that, but I don't think it's something we're looking forward to using again. We may be forced to use it. You may be in a situation where you need speed as opposed to gross safety, and you may be forced to use it, but generally speaking, I think we probably won't be using it very much.
The Secretary of Defense, on that train, the Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, and J.D. Vance, the Vice President, said that the Europeans were freeloading. Do you agree with that assessment?
Do you really want me to answer that? Yeah, I think they've been freeloading. The European Union's been absolutely terrible to us on trade, terrible. And as you know, NATO, I got them to pay hundreds of billions of dollars. They were way behind. And if you look if you look at Ukraine, so we're in for $350 billion because of Biden. Should have never happened, this war. All these dead people should not be dead. All these broken cities that are demolished down to the ground, those gorgeous towers, the most beautiful in the world, the most beautiful spires in the world. The spires in Ukraine were said to be the most beautiful of all. Just about every one of them is lying on its side in a million pieces. It's so sad to see what's happened to a heritage. No, I think that when they say the European Union and you could say NATO also. Look, NATO, and I don't blame NATO for this. I don't blame Europe for this. I blame Biden for the fact that he didn't make them equalize. And to this day, I said to him, you got to catch up, you got to equalize. But why are they in for $100 billion and we're in for possibly $350 billion? It shouldn't be. It shouldn't be. And you could say more important for them because we have an ocean in between. So, you know, it's one of those things. You'll be seeing Liberation Day. I call it Liberation Day in America. You're going to be seeing it on April 2nd. Didn't want to do it on April 1st for the obvious reason, April 2nd. But you'll be seeing tariffs. And I think I've been very fair. I have them set. But I think I've been very fair to countries that have really abused us economically for many, many decades.
Mr. President, that information was not classified.
Another question? Please, go ahead.
Just following up on your comments on the economy, there is reporting that consumer confidence fell for the 4th straight month. What is your message to Americans who are concerned about
terrorism? Well, I know this, that for the first time in like 50 years, right track, wrong track, we were on the right track. And I think people see that. And if you look at prices, prices are way down. You know, when I first came here, the first time I met with you people officially, they were screaming at me about eggs. I said, I've been here for a week and I'm being yelled at about eggs. Egg prices have come down 45–50% in the last week and a half. And our Secretary of Agriculture has done a great job, as you know, Brooke. She's done a fantastic job, and others working with her have done a great job. But we brought eggs down at a level that nobody thought we could get at. I inherited that situation, and I inherited a grocery situation. The groceries went way up, an old-fashioned word, but it's a very descriptive word. Groceries have gone through the roof. And I used to campaign on it. I used to say, we're going to get groceries down, and we have got it down. I watched a certain newscast over the weekend, and a congressman, Democrat congressman, said, well, Trump's done a lot, I agree. He's been great on the border, he's been great on the military, but, you know, he hasn't brought prices down. That's false. Gasoline's way down. Eggs are way down. Groceries are down very substantially, but down. Almost everything's down. Now, I'd like to see interest rates come down a little bit, and you're going to see billions of dollars, even trillions of dollars coming into our country very soon in the form of tariffs, because we were abused by presidents that, frankly, in all fairness, it wasn't their expertise, but they had no idea what they were doing.
Mr. President, you say tariffs will create more jobs here in America.
Oh,
so
yeah, sure.
which states?
It'll create a lot of money and more jobs. But if you look, so in the last, these gentlemen would know about it, and ladies, because some of the ladies are great businessmen in this room that are becoming ambassadors. Great, really great, top of the line. When you look at the number of companies that have said, like, we're close to, I would say close to $4 trillion. We never had numbers like that. The #1 chip maker in the world from Taiwan coming in with $200 billion. We have Apple. Look at Apple. $500 billion. $500 billion. They're going to build plants all over the United States. They were all being built in China. You have many, many companies, and maybe above all, you have the car companies coming in at levels that nobody's ever seen before. We have Honda is opening up one of the biggest plants in the world in Indiana, and many car companies are coming in. We have AI. We're leading China by a lot in AI, and we're going to keep it that way because we've made it very good for them, and we're going to protect them. Once they're here, we'll protect them through taxes, through incentives, and also through tariffs. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, and that was Donald Trump there giving a press conference in the White House, initially on the topic of that security breach via WhatsApp. Astonishing scenes where a journalist, the editor of The Atlantic, was included on a highly confidential WhatsApp group. That's the first one. And then members of Donald Trump's own cabinet admitted that they believed that Europe was freeloading off the United States. First of all, when he was asked about that, Donald Trump said, I don't think that he should apologise for what he said, but I don't think he'll be using the technology anytime soon. He was then specifically asked by the journalist about that question. Do you believe the Europeans are freeloading off you? And Donald Trump said, do you want to answer that question honestly? He said, yes. Europe has been freeloading off the United States, and for a long time. He repeated rhetoric we hear often. The European Union have been terrible to the United States for decades. Then on NATO dues, he said, I don't blame NATO, I blame Joe Biden. He was stupid. He allowed them to get away with it. And then he said, I've been fair to countries who've been very unfair to us for a very long time. He was asked about the economy, and we went through the usual track list of we are on track. A lot of jobs will be created. We've got $4 billion worth of investment coming in from Taiwan in the form of chips. And the car companies, including Honda, is opening the biggest plant in Indiana. We are going to protect AI and make sure we stay ahead of China through tax and investment. So the usual comprehensive range of topics covered off. Now let's bring in my panel now for some reaction. And that is Sir Ranil Jayawardena. Pleasure to have you, always. Former Conservative MP and Minister. And Joe Phillips, the journalist and former press secretary to Paddy Ashdown. Welcome to you both. Joe, I'm going to start with you. You were biting your lip off there, eager to get stuck in, particularly when Donald Trump said there are some great ladies, businessmen.
He's so patronising, isn't he?
Give us some reaction to what Trump said there. He doubled down. He said, yes, the Europeans are freeloading.
Yes, well, of course he will. But I was listening before I came into the studio to a former American general who has served his country for 40 years, who said that the comments that Trump had been, or Trump's colleagues had made before this press conference, made him feel embarrassed and ashamed because he had worked with European forces and under European commanders in Afghanistan and Iraq and other places. They do seem to have a very selective memory, the Americans, Martin. And this whole thing about it's Signal, this similar to WhatsApp group where these things... I mean, it's not surprising that people talk and, you know, let their private feelings. I mean, Ranald is no stranger to it. We're no strangers to it. People do. But when you're using something like that to talk about when you're actually going to bomb something and how, and you've inadvertently included a journalist who happened to be a responsible journalist as opposed to somebody who might have used it for nefarious reasons, it doesn't give you an awful lot of faith. I mean, he just keeps coming out with the greatest hits, the same old record. But it's embarrassing.
What do you say to that? I mean, maybe he's got a point, though, Ranil. It's got a point. I mean, if you look at the numbers, in terms of the financial contribution, many European nations have been underpaying for decades, particularly into NATO. And a lot of people are saying, well, this is smearing the United Kingdom as well. I don't think this was aimed at the UK. Do you? It was aimed at the European Union, in countries like Germany and all the rest of them who haven't been paying their NATO dues for decades.
Well, first of all, I think, the scale of American defence spending, I think it's all of Europe plus Russia plus China, and they've still got more, which says that, yes, Europe needs to spend more, and if that comes out of what has been happening recently, that's a good thing for our own national defence. It's important we can defend this country against threats from other states and elsewhere. But here's the thing that I think is really interesting. There's less, and you might not want me to say this, but there's less between Trump and Biden and Obama than people might otherwise think, because Obama talked about how the US needed to pivot away from Europe and pivot to the Pacific and the threat from China. Biden's been saying similar, and in terms of trade wars and so on, Biden was ramping that up with China too. So there's less between American presidents than would necessarily be at first appearance.
You can take it back to Kennedy.
Right.
Back in the 60s, who said that NATO countries needed to step up. They couldn't always. So Ranald's absolutely right.
So why is Trump getting so much stick if they've all been at it?
Because he's so vile the way he says it. And
That's because you don't like him.
I don't like him for 1,000,001 reasons, but he's also surrounded by half-wits, as we have seen, who can't even...
How do you mean?
Well, if you've got the Defence Secretary, the head of security, and all these other cabinet members or equivalent cabinet members who can't work out how to keep a group secure, I think they're pretty stupid.
Well, the Chancellor, that group would have been started by an understudy and an admin error. But the point is, people do talk freely on WhatsApp groups when they believe there in secret. We're seeing that with Matt Hancock. We saw that during...
Yes,
all politicians do.
Yes, of course, and that's what I said at the beginning, Martin. But this was actually to talk about when they were going to launch an attack on boats on the Houthi rebels.
Yeah.
This wasn't just, you know, oh, we hate the Brits and we think Carney's a twit and all the rest of it. This was actually a serious meeting. And if you can't actually get your guest list right so that you include a journalist, I think that's pretty poor.
Clearly, the journalists should not have been on this, and this does show the danger of relying too much on these technologies and not going through the proper channels. There's this tension, as you rightly say, even in the British government, and during COVID and outside COVID times, WhatsApp is being used, but it's no replacement for having the conversations face-to-face in government, in private, and then coming to a decision and executing it. And for these sorts of very grave matters of national security, that's absolutely the way it should be done.
But don't you think it's just the way that Donald Trump operates? He ramps up the rhetoric, freeloading, you know, they're all kind of leeching off America, and then he kind of will come in with a perfectly reasonable demand to pay your NATO dues. It's just the art of the deal. It's just him being brinksmanship.
Yeah, he is a deal maker, but he seems to have forgotten that he's not doing a reality TV show. He's actually supposed to be the leader of the free world. And we know perfectly well he's being played by Putin. He's more upset about some ghastly portrait that's hanging in some place in Nowheresville, Arizona, but delighted at the portrait that Putin commissioned of him. He's got a bloke who went out there, Steve Whitlock, or whatever his name is, who he plays golf with, sent him out to negotiate with Putin, and the guy doesn't even know the names of the regions in Ukraine that the Americans want Ukraine to give up to Russia.
Joe Phillips, I suspect Donald Trump could solve world peace, famine.
I'm sure he could.
He could fly us all to the moon, and
could.
you still wouldn't approve.
No, I don't approve. I think he's a disgrace.
So he couldn't do anything decent in your eyes?
Yeah, he could resign, but then we'd end up with J.D. Vance, and that would be even worse.
who you've called a half-wit. Is there anybody you like in Trump's cabinet? Anybody who's caught your eye who might be useful for this special relationship?
I'm sure there are people there who are a bit more sensible, and I'm sure that as time goes on, it might settle down a little bit. I mean, there's an awful lot of speculation, quite interestingly, I think, that J.D. Vance is a chameleon, and so he's playing up to Trump and he's out-trumping Trump, if you like. And we saw that with that appalling behaviour in the Oval Office with President Zelensky. And it may be that if at some point Vance became presidential candidate or became president.
Ranil, has Joe Phillips got Trump derangement syndrome?
No, Joe's entitled to her views. I think, of course she's entitled to her views, because we live in a democracy. We're really lucky we do. I think the thing about Donald Trump is when he was last in the White House, there wasn't conflict because people were scared around the world that he was unpredictable and they couldn't play him. And if he can try and broker a lasting peace in Ukraine, then that's got to be a good thing, because Ukrainian men, indeed Ukrainian people, but also Russian men and folks from elsewhere in Russia's sphere of influence are dying all the time because this conflict is continuing. So if he can do something, that's got to be a good thing. It's got to be a positive thing, and we should welcome that.
OK, thank you, guys. Let's get some American reaction on this now. I'm joined by Lee Cohen, a former advisor on UK affairs to the US Congress. Lee, always an absolute pleasure to have you on GB News. What are people making of this, your side of the pond? I mean, I think that it's fair play to say that Europe has been for a long time freeloading, because the facts say that's the truth.
Well, good evening, Martin, and thank you so much for having me on. First of all, while the media hyperventilate over an opportunity to castigate the Trump administration, Trump's minor messaging glitch, the team, Trump's team just delivered a knockout blow to terrorists in Yemen, and I think that's what we should be focusing on, proving once again that results matter more than headlines. But as far as Europe, this should surprise no one, because this has been Trump's position all along. These texts show what everyone's thinking over here, and many in the UK as well. The EU's been riding America's coattails for decades. Europe's been riding America's coattails for decades. Trump's aides aren't wrong. NATO countries like Germany barely hit 1.5 on defense, while we're at 3.5. I mean, that's pathetic. The freeloaders are not paying their fair share.
And it's worth pointing out as well that those airstrikes on the Houthi rebels will largely benefit Europe. I think it's like 40% of trade to Europe travels through the Suez Canal. It's like 3% of American goods. So Donald Trump intervened in a capacity that will more largely benefit Europe. And yet he's still being criticised for being anti-European.
Well, 100%, Martin. The Yemen strikes worked. Shipping lanes are open. Houthis are on the ropes. I mean, that's what matters. And the Atlantic story, the Atlantic, the American publication, is just, digging up dirt to distract from the wins, not only, as you say, for America, but for Europe as well. And going back to what I said before, America first isn't a secret. Trump's been saying this since 2016, and we're done bailing out the world. Europe's 40% of trade runs through Suez. Ours is 3%. Why are we footing the bill?
Yeah, and you know what, Lee Cohen? A lot of people will probably agree with that. And The Atlantic, by the way, a journalistic title, probably with the most severe case of Trump derangement syndrome on the planet. It dwarfs that even of Joe Phillips. Thank you, Lee. It's a pleasure to have you on the show, Joe. I'm only joshing with you. Thank you very much. And also to you, Ranu, of course. Thank you very, very much. Now, for the break, I'll be getting back to domestic politics. I'll get the view of my panel about this grim migration milestone for the Labour government. 30,000 arrivals since Labour came to power illegally.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's at the Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it? Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Dubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
The royal family is an enduring symbol of tradition, unity and pride for Britain. At GB News, we celebrate what makes this country great. In our new royal newsletter series, you can join me, Cameron Walker, for Inside the Palace, an exclusive look every week that takes you beyond the gates and brings you the very latest from those at the heart of the monarchy. Never miss a royal moment again. Sign up now. Go to gbnews.com/royal newsletter and get the latest straight to your inbox.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Welcome back. Now, earlier on, I spoke to the former Home Secretary, Suella Braverman, about the surge in channel crossings under the current government. So will any government ever be able to get a grip on this gargantuan issue? Let's get back now to the thoughts of my panel. And that's Serrano Jayawardena, got it right this time, and the former Conservative MP, of course, and Minister, and Joe Phillips, the journalist and former press secretary to Paddy Ashdown. Serrano, let's start with you. It's a grim milestone that no Prime Minister would like, but 30,000, well, actually 3 shy of 30,000. It's a new record. They said they'd smash the gangs. Instead, Labour are just smashing the records.
Yeah, sadly, this is true. And, you know, as Suella said, we shouldn't take any pride in it, pleasure in it, because this is bad for the country. And this isn't what the country needs. There's a huge cost to it, but it's also sending a very bad signal to the rest of the world that actually Britain is open in terms of the borders that we have and the way that we're enforcing them.
But it was for 14 years when your mob were in control.
Well, we had a plan to try and deal with it. The Rwanda scheme, if Labour thought that the scheme was not going to work, they should have let it run its course and proven that.
How many people went to Rwanda
instead,
on that?
Instead, they scrapped it before it had a chance to be properly implemented. And now it's interesting that they're thinking about using the Balkans as a place to do processing offshore instead of Rwanda. So they're beginning to accept that there is a problem that needs to be fixed with some offshore processing. It's just a shame they didn't let Rwanda be bedded in properly when they came to office. And I think they've discovered now that the reality of government really does come into conflict with the theory of opposition. And it was a lot easier when they're simply complaining about it and complaining about us. And that goes for other parties like Reform as well. It's a lot easier when you're just complaining about what the Conservatives were doing when we were in government. It's a lot harder to get over the line and do it. And Labour's really now got to pull their finger out and come up with some innovative solutions, like perhaps this Balkan scheme.
Hang on, it wasn't a case of like slogans and having a pop from the sidelines. You were in power for 14 years,
and you know,
1 million came in legally. You can't just palm this off onto Labour.
But here's the thing: you've got to separate that legal stuff. We can talk about that if you want to, but we're talking about the illegal. But we're talking about the illegal migration here. So let's be really clear what we're talking about. We had
also a disaster.
We had a plan of Rwanda to process people offshore. Suella was an architect of that scheme. Unfortunately, that scheme was not allowed to be implemented because Labour scrapped it when they came to power. And that's a great shame. That was a solution. We believed it was going to work. Unfortunately, Labour took that away from this country, and now it looks like they're trying to find a new solution in the Balkans. It's a great shame they have spent a year allowing people in without a solution to the problem.
Joe Phillips, do you think people listening to this show might think, you know, every party gets in power and blames something else? Every party is in opposition and blames the current mob that are in. We're staring down the barrel of what seems like an unstoppable King Canutian tide, and today it got worse.
A King Canutian tide?
A tide that cannot be stopped.
I know, it's very good.
They can shout at it all they like.
But I do remember Priti Patel coming up with the idea of putting sort of giant rings out. You know, we've had all sorts of bonkers ideas. Rwanda was a completely bonkers and very expensive idea. But we also had, you know, she was going to put a boom across, and then, you know, somebody said, oh, I know, we'll send the Navy out there to send them back. Well, you know...
Good idea.
Completely ignoring international maritime law.
Isn't that the point? The international law doesn't work for us. The ECHR doesn't work for us. Brussels doesn't work for us. Nobody seems to work for us. It's up to us. Surely what we want is a brave and bold government. Someone perhaps like that man you can't stand, Donald Trump. Deport people. Put the country first, and to heck with the consequences.
Yeah, round them all up and send them off somewhere absolutely ghastly. Without, I mean, many of these...
Venezuela, from where they came, that wasn't somewhere ghastly. How about sending them back to the country from whence they came? By the way, France, safe country.
There are all sorts of issues, and, you know, as you rightly say, Martin, the previous government, 14 years, they didn't deal with it. But I think you're also right to talk about legal migration. And I think all the time everybody gets understandably concerned about illegal migrants, and not to mention the people that are still
visibly
waiting.
cheating the system. It's very tangible.
And many of them are still sitting, waiting for their asylum claims to be processed at huge cost to the country, and that went up and up and up under the previous government.
OK, here's the point. Should anybody on those boats coming here illegal even be able to claim asylum? How about we say, you came here illegally, you don't qualify, clear off? How about that?
If you were in a position to escape from Gaza, let's say...
Calais isn't Gaza.
No,
that's Calais different from Calais.
No, I know. But if you were that desperate and you'd got somebody perhaps here in this country and you wanted to make your way here...
You think we should have Palestinian refugees in Britain? You're not seriously saying that?
I think there are people who come who are genuine refugees.
Palestinians?
Palestinians are having a terrible time. 50,000 of them being killed.
You've seen what Palestinian refugees tend to do to countries historically when they're accepted. Why don't Arabian countries want any Palestinians in?
Many of them have taken many of them. I mean, Jordan, even Syria, Turkey, they have taken many refugees over the years.
Two-thirds of Palestinians that went to Denmark became criminals. The same amount of their children became criminals. They're less likely to work.
Where do you get those figures from, Martin?
It's the Danish government's own study in the 1990s. And the criminality, the propensity to pay tax, the propensity to claim benefits is abnormal to the population in a way that's very bad. Palestinian refugees are not good. If they were, then the Arabian states would take them in.
So do you think what's happening in Palestine is OK, then? That those people have got nowhere to go?
What I would say, and I think many people watching the show would say right now, is not Britain's problem to solve it.
Well, I think the point you made a minute ago about Calais, France, being a safe country is an absolutely crucial one here. No one escaping persecution anywhere in the world can say that once they've got to France, they're no longer safe. Of course they're safe in France. France is a friend and ally of this country. Sometimes it doesn't seem like that, but ultimately that is true. It is a safe country, and anyone who is genuinely fleeing persecution should be able to claim asylum there. And, of course, they should have been able to claim asylum in a lot of countries that they will have crossed to get to France, let alone then the channel to the United Kingdom. So we've got to be much tougher on that. But also, I think there's a wider point around the ECHR, and you will know that the Conservatives, I accept this is now in opposition, so we don't have the ability to do it, but we have proposed that there should be a derogation from the ECHR when it comes to the courts administering these sorts of asylum claims. Well, look, come on. But, Martin, I'm being very frank and honest here. We're saying we've identified this is something that we can do, and the Labour government are the people who have the chance to do it now, and they are not doing it. And what we've heard today, I'm afraid, from Joe, is an acceptance from the Liberal Democrats, which is they want an open door. Okay, they want an open door.
We have to move on, Rano. Joe, excellent. We're just getting warmed up, but there's more to come, because after the break, another day, another taxpayer-funded diversity, equity and inclusion hire. This time, it's at the woke MOD. Plus, can you spot anything wrong with this picture? Look at that, a desecration of the Eiffel Tower. That's after the break.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean All Clear Skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Whilst some western parts of Europe are having something a little bit drier than they've seen through recent days, further east it's a very unsettled picture. We have heavy rain across parts of Italy, Greece for example. Totals could build up to around 100–150 millimetres over the Italian mountains, with some intense thunderstorms mixed in as well. Meanwhile, further west, a drier picture, albeit some rain pushing its way into Madeira as we go through tomorrow. Otherwise, like I said, western parts having the best of the dry, sunny weather.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello there, good evening. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Turning chilly under clear skies tonight, it's likely we'll see a fair amount of mist and fog. Some drizzle to start the evening too across parts of the southeast, all thanks to this cold front eventually clearing its way towards the southeast, allowing a ridge of high pressure to build. So that means it's going to be a largely settled night to come. But with light winds, clear skies, it's likely we'll see some mist and fog by the time we reach the morning, particularly around North Sea coasts, past parts of East Anglia and across parts of the south too could see quite a murky morning, but largely dry, though we can't rule out a few showers just skirting the far north of Scotland. Turning chilly under those clear skies too, perhaps even some light patchy frost in rural spots. So across parts of the south, quite a murky start, quite grey skies around, some mist and fog, which may be quite dense at times and perhaps a little bit slow to clear. Similar across Northern Ireland, parts of northern England, some patchy fog, also some frost in places. And across Scotland, still fairly dry. Once again, there is a risk of some mist and fog to start and just a few showers, particularly across parts of Shetland, maybe even some longer spells of rain by the morning too. Once any mist and fog clears, particularly across the south, it will lead to quite a bright day, plenty of sunny spells and largely dry too, though once again just the odd shower skirting the Northern Isles, and we'll start to see cloud thicken across the very far northwest too, perhaps even some light outbreaks of rain just starting to push into western Scotland later and turning quite blustery here, but in the sunshine, highs of 17, possibly 18 degrees Celsius, so warm spring sunshine to come into tomorrow. For Thursday, though, it's starting to turn more unsettled. Cloud and outbreaks of rain sinking its way southwards across Northern Ireland, Scotland, later into northern parts of England and Wales. Across the very far south and southeast, that's where we'll see the best of the brightness. And once again, feeling warm in the sunshine, but unsettled on Friday and Saturday with showers, longer spells of rain, and feeling a little bit cooler too. Bye-bye.
If you want your news to be straight talking, this is a nightmare for the Conservatives again. Down to earth. It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it? And most importantly, honest. Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them. Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This spring, the Chancellor steps up to the dispatch box to make a statement. But what kind of statement will it be?
Taxes, spending, growth, benefits, cost of living. What's changing? And more importantly, how does it affect you?
Does she have the headroom to make headway?
Will it ease the squeeze or tighten the grip?
Will businesses boom or struggle to survive?
And does the spring statement have real impact, or is it just political posturing?
GB News brings you the analysis that matters. Just what it means for your money, your home, your future.
The Spring Statement 2025, tomorrow on GB News.
Welcome back. Now, Labour may have vowed to boost defence spending just last month, but the Defence Secretary John Healey claiming the RAF will police the skies above Ukraine. It looks like the real action of the MOD is policing common sense. In a baffling move today, the MOD is now hiring a head of people development and culture, offering a staggering £70,540 salary, plus, on top of that, a nice dollop of £20,435 in pension contributions. Now, what's the lucky hire's job? Well, it's overseeing EDI strategy delivery, of course, fostering inclusivity and making sure that civil servants feel valued. Now, here's the kicker. For that same salary, you could hire 3 soldiers. What would you rather have? 3 squaddies or 1 pencil pusher? Well, joining this to discuss me now is my panel. And that's Serrano J. Wardener and the former Conservative MP and Minister, and Joe Phillips, journalist and the former Press Secretary to Paddy Ashdown-Hoving interview, of course. Also, Jacob Rees-Mogg. Joe, I'll start with you. Why on earth do we have these ridiculous inclusivity hires when actually what people want are boots on the ground? Actually, people can fight wars for us.
And part of the problem, Martin, is the ridiculous phrases that they use about, inclusivity and, everybody does it about delivery and mission statements and all that. I mean, maybe they need a personnel officer, which nobody would bat an eyelid at. Maybe it's a welfare officer. But as soon as you go into this, everybody gets all agitated about it.
It's a pronoun police. We don't need this on the front line.
We don't need this sort of shoot yourself in the foot from the MOD.
They'd probably
Sorry,
miss.
that's a rather unfortunate thing to say.
Isn't that the point? These people couldn't shoot themselves in the foot. They're not soldiers, they're pencil pushers. We don't need this nonsense in the MOD.
This is the government showing that they've not actually connected brain here. They're talking about slimming down the civil service, and yet they're hiring for jobs like this. The job title itself, it might have been defensible. As Joe says, you might need folks in HR, but drilling down into it, you can see that this is the sort of non-job that is exactly what the government is right about. And if they're going to do what they say they're going to do, this is one of the first jobs to be abolished. So come on, John Healey.
Do you think, Joe Phillips, we'll just see more of this? I mean, a lot of people just live in despair now. This is the new normal.
Well, I mean, it does seem the timing is absolutely bonkers at a time when tomorrow, who knows what Rachel Reeves is going to say, but she certainly isn't going to say, oh, look, I found some extra money, let's recruit lots and lots of people. You know, we're talking about cuts.
They could recruit more nurses. They got rid of the diversity officers of the NHS.
Yes,
that's the point.
No, absolutely. I mean, you know, if you look at the layers of management across the NHS and on so many areas of public life and civic institutions, of course you could save a lot of money. And there may be a perfectly good reason for having this, but then describe it better.
Yeah. OK, good. Let's get on to this next talking point, which I know you've all been looking forward to in the studio. It's this: a fashion advertisement has sparked outrage over the channel in France, reigniting the fierce debate over secularism. A women's clothing brand, Mirachi, which claims to represent modesty, confidence and unity, posted an Instagram video. Look, on your screens, it's the Eiffel Tower being draped in a hijab. Now, predictably, the backlash in the secular nation has been swift, creating anything but unity. Now, this raises the question, is this merely provocative marketing or a deliberate challenge to France's secular identity? Ranil, I'll start with you. This has really gone down terribly over in France. Le Pen's party saying it's a deliberate act of provocation. Of course, the hijab has been banned in schools. Or are we just being snowflakes? It's just an advert.
It is just an advert. I mean, I can't tell you how little I care about this. I mean, it's just extraordinary.
At least pretend.
You know, this should not be an issue. I know France is a different country in terms of it's a more secular country legally than we are here, but you know, this really does not matter.
How do you feel if Big Ben was placed in a full burqa?
Ultimately, plenty of people project all sorts of things onto Parliament all the time.
And that outraged you at the time. So why not this?
Well, first of all, it's in France. But second, you know, actually the fact that people are doing this is exactly what the marketers want. They want us to be talking about it, so it's working.
Joe Phillips.
How many of us had heard of this company before? How many GB News viewers or readers of all the major papers have heard of this? It's marketing. Do you remember the Benetton ads?
I do. They were marvellous.
So shocking, but they were very clever. You know, there's all sorts of ads that are clever and shocking. And yes, of course, it's different in France because the hijab is banned in public and public buildings and things. But you know, it's not about being a snowflake. It's about being pompous.
OK, Joe and Ranil, superb stuff. So Jacob Rees-Mogg's interview, of course, State of the Nation is next. I know you've got a superstar guest, but what about your take on this? Is it offensive to drape the Eiffel Tower in a hijab, and would you brush it off similarly if it were a full burqa of a Big Ben?
I'm with Ranil. Anything that winds up the French is jolly and fair. But also what they should do is they should put a wimple on the Eiffel Tower.
Yeah.
France should go back to its Catholic roots. The King of France used to be the most Christian king. Back to Catholicism, make France great again, but it needs to be the loyal daughter of Rome, and then it'll be fine. And we won't have to worry about all of this.
That's great.
You weren't expecting that,
back the wimple.
Cross-faith desecration of the Eiffel Tower. Beautiful.
Wimples are
Jason, you've got a special guest tonight.
Lots of exciting things today. So I've got Charlie Mullins coming in because he was threatened with having his honour taken away because he upset the Labour Party. I've got Lord Moynihan of Chelsea coming in to talk about the economy, and Rachel from Accounts failures and the disastrous economic policy Labour is following. And I've got Damon Joshua coming in, who's been fired by Severn Trent Water for defending Israel against Palestine and calling Hamas terrorists, and Severn Trent Water didn't like it.
And Hamas are terrorists.
Hamas are terrorists.
So
he said something that's true, is the view of His Majesty's government, and Severn Trent Water clearly don't like political debate.
They put it on their website, though.
Yeah,
Internet.
But isn't it?
There was discussion within a company.
And it's fair to say Hamas are terrorists. He's in a pickle. Charlie Mullins in a pickle, similarly, for being outspoken. Is free speech under attack? That's the conversation coming up next on State of the Nation with Sir Jacob Rees-Mogg. Thanks, my wonderful panel. It's been great sport tonight. Joe Phillips even got through the show without giving me a nice little slap around the ear roll, which I probably deserve. State of the Nation is next with Sir Jacob Rees-Mogg. See you tomorrow at 3.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, good evening. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Turning chilly under clear skies tonight, it's likely we'll see a fair amount of mist and fog. Some drizzle to start the evening too across parts of the southeast, all thanks to this cold front eventually clearing its way towards the southeast, allowing a ridge of high pressure to build. So that means it's going to be a largely settled night to come. But with light winds, clear skies, it's likely we'll see some mist and fog by the time we reach the morning, particularly around North Sea coasts, past parts of East Anglia and across parts of the south too. Could see quite a murky morning, but largely dry, though we can't rule out a few showers just skirting the far north of Scotland. Turning chilly under those clear skies too, perhaps even some light patchy frost in rural spots. So across parts of the south, quite a murky start, quite grey skies around, some mist and fog, which may be quite dense at times and perhaps a little bit slow to clear. Similar across Northern Ireland, parts of northern England, some patchy fog, also some frost in places. And across Scotland, still fairly dry. Once again, there is a risk of some mist and fog to start and just a few showers, particularly across parts of Shetland, maybe even some longer spells of rain by the morning too. Once any mist and fog clears, particularly across the south, it will lead to quite a bright day, plenty of sunny spells and largely dry too, though once again just the odd shower skirting the Northern Isles. And we'll start to see cloud thicken across the very far northwest too, perhaps even some light outbreaks of rain just starting to push into western Scotland later and turning quite blustery here. But in the sunshine, highs of 17, possibly 18 degrees Celsius, so warm spring sunshine to come into tomorrow. For Thursday, though, it's starting to turn more unsettled. Cloud and outbreaks of rain sinking its way southwards across Northern Ireland, Scotland, later into northern parts of England and Wales. Across the very far south and southeast, that's where we'll see the best of the brightness. And once again, feeling warm in the sunshine, but unsettled on Friday and Saturday with showers, longer spells of rain, and feeling a little bit cooler too. Bye-bye.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on.
You could have £17,777 in tax-free cash to play with this spring. Cash to spend on anything you like. And if that wasn't enough, we're also going to give you not one, but two sought-after designer watches and the latest Mulberry handbag. How would winning that sound? For another chance to win the lot, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB12 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 4th of April. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it? Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
The royal family is an enduring symbol of tradition, unity and pride for Britain. At GB News, we celebrate what makes this country great.